Look at that. How's it going? As always, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It's Nate Mumford, Director of Sales Engineering here at RCS. Time to host another RCS Live. Today, we're talking about GSelector and Twofers. I've had a lot of friends and support poke me and say, hey, I got a client who's trying to do this for a theme weekend. I got this weekend coming up. We're doing an A to Z weekend. We've done all these videos in the past on our archive. Oh, yes, that's right. If only there was somewhere you could go to watch past videos of, little programming techniques, scheduling techniques, little tricks and hacks, if you will, with GSelector. That's on our archive over at rcsworks.com/RCS-live. And yes, I thought for today, let's talk about Twofers for a second. Kind of talking about how they behave, little gotchas, Remember, GSelector will only do what you tell it to do. So let's tell it to do what we want to do with Twofers, right? As always, I got my chat open here, Twitch, Facebook Live, what are they saying here? YouTube and Twitter Live, if that's still a thing. I'm still connecting to it. So yeah, any of that stuff, I'm here to answer your questions. So if you have anything curious about Twofers or how to program it, I'm here to help you. That's the whole purpose of these videos, right? Some housekeeping to get out of the way. First, we are hitting the road. You might have seen this earlier. We're going to be out and about this year. A lot of great places coming up. You'll see I'll be at NRB, at Momentum as well, Canadian Music Week. And that's also Radio Days, North America as well. I got my passport ready to go. So if you're going to be at one of those events, please reach out to us. You can do marketing at rcsworks.com. Reach out to me directly. You can contact your support person, whoever it is here at RCS. Get them in touch. And we want to kind of talk about, talk shop. The beauty is I have my laptop here with my database, but we can easily go and look at yours. We can talk about certain things, and we can really break down whatever you want to talk about. And I joked about this last week. Part of the beauty about this is we're not live on the air. It's one of those scenarios where, oh, that's what the stop button does. Yeah, but we're not going to do that in a live environment. So let's play around with it, and we can have some fun. If you're going to be out and about, again, the RCS Academy on the road at all of these events right there. You can check it out, or you can reach out to your local RCS contact. We'll get you in touch for all that good stuff as well. So what do you say? Oh, before I forget, beta users, always looking for beta users. And we have, don't forget to check your backups as well. Backups, beta users, all that good stuff. All right, let's dive into it. I have my chat open here. If you got questions, we are talking about GSelector Twofers. Yes, first thing. And by the way, you notice I cranked out my classic rock database here because that's kind of more of a Twofer-friendly database. First things first, where do you set up your Twofers? That would be under Setup, Station, Features, and then Twofers right here. Setup, Station, Features, Twofer. We want to allow Twofers, and this is a very, very important setting in my personal opinion. So there's a lot of programming philosophies around this, right? So essentially, I always use the Chris Cornell example. And so when I'm looking at Twofers, by the way, I guess I should give a little background on Twofers just in case you're not familiar with them. The idea of Twofers is that I schedule one position and then I schedule an artist by the same exact, the same artist in the next position, right? And now we call them Twofers because there's usually a classic double shot weekend or something like that. But the reality is that the Twofers is just a position that says reference the artist from the previous position, from the previous position, from the previous position. So I've seen some users get really crazy and do like an entire music sweep of Twofers because even though there's only, it's two in the name, you can do 3, 4, 5, or 6 as long as you have enough songs by the same artist, which we will cover in just a little bit. Now, hey, Mark, how's it going? We are still counting down the days, Mark, counting down the days. So yeah, we talk about Twofers, artist versus vocalist. So I use the example of Chris Cornell. And so the idea is that, and this is all based on you. This is your music philosophy, what you feel like doing. So if I'm playing a Soundgarden song on a double shot weekend or whatever it is, ask yourself this question. Remember, GSelector will only do what you tell it to do. Are you okay with playing a Soundgarden record next to a Chris Cornell record? Ask yourself, am I okay with the Soundgarden record playing next to a Temple of the Dog record? You you can see that this starts getting a little fuzzy along the way. Some PDs just, respect the traditional. If it's a Soundgarden, it's a Soundgarden. That's it. Some artists do kind of, cross over a little bit. And so you might be okay with a Soundgarden into Chris Cornell, but you're not okay with a Soundgarden into Temple of the Dog, because that might be a little too Pearl Jammy for you or something, right? Fine. So what you can do here, I love I picked my flannel for this episode. Isn't that great, Mark? I picked the right episode. So anyway, so what we can do here essentially is define in this setting here, what do we want to utilize? What do we want to match on? And there's two very important things I want to point out here. Number one, if you don't want to play Chris Cornell next to Soundgarden, then we got to stick with artist. And that will take the primary artist, not the vocalist field in both. The second thing is going to be is if you're okay with Soundgarden into Chris Cornell, but you're not okay with Soundgarden and Temple of the Dog, we need to tell GSelector that, yes, you're allowed to be a vocalist, but I don't want this vocalist to play over, right? And we can ban that in the goals and the rules section over here of GSelector, which we will cover in just a second. So I'm going to move a little quick here because I have a gut feeling that I can talk about this for like an hour, and I don't want to do this. So I'm going to move pretty quickly so you can always rewatch this video again on our archive or live on YouTube or whatever, and you just kind of go back and see these steps. But I will move a little quick just for time purposes. So first things first, enable it here. There's the vocalist. This is what's going on, right? So let's first build our clock. So what we're going to do here is going to build the clock, override the clock structure, schedule the log itself. I'm going to show you some pinpoints of what's going on here in the editor. Why is it not working? And then we're going to customize what I mean by those twofers, right? So first things first, go to our clock section over here. Go to my definition. I created a brand new RCS Live Twofers here, right? So what it's going to do by the definition of twofer is we're going to reference the previous, in this case, vocalist from the previous position. So what you want to do is the first things first is you want to define that position, right? So the first position of the twofer, you want to intentionally, notice the choice of my words here, intentionally choose that song. So what is that song? Mine's a default little N1 song category, but yours could be a themed weekend. So I'm working with support over, shout out to Rob over there. And by the way, shout out to Stan too for the idea over here. And Rob has one particular client that wants to essentially, have a peak year, right? And they're going to create a themed weekend based on that year. And they're going to schedule in their circumstance, the first song should be a theme. And then, of course, the theme song, and then wherever that theme may be. And then we'll do twofers based on that theme if they want to do twofers based on that theme. So there's anything you can do here, right? The idea is that whatever this is, it could be a themed weekend. It could be a specific song, a specific artist. But we're going to take that first one, and then we're going to define the twofer position below that, which is just here, just twofer. And you might ask yourself, where do I define the twofer? There is nothing to define here because essentially we're saying take the N1 here and whatever vocalist plays, we want to replicate it in this position and in this position. And then because I have in position 6, another song category A, I'm going to have a new vocalist that will follow here and here, so on and so forth. And one of the things that Rob and I were kind of chatting about is working a little smarter, not harder. So this is my one music sweep. See, N1, twofer themed weekend. Oh, and yeah, by the way, I did create a leading link with a twofer themed weekend match. We'll talk about that in a second. And so you can see here is I have essentially exact time marker, song category group, leading link, twofer, song category group, link, twofer, ETM, spot block, right? That's my music sweep. So what I was encouraging you to do is work smarter. So let's highlight this, Control C to copy, go to the very bottom down here, hit paste, and look at that. Boom. I have my full music sweep recreated down the bottom. You see that? So work a little smarter here when we're building our clock structures. If you're getting really unique with some of these twofers and leading links and flying links and all of that, build your music sweep, copy and paste it, adjust it, save it, work a lot smarter, take an existing clock and do a duplicate save as. I got some past videos on this as well. So there's some great things you can do in regards to copy and paste and clock structure. But at the root of this, the twofer position has no properties because we're respecting the vocalist in this case from the previous position. Jump into assignment. Of course, we can do single overrides by the hour itself. So if you're doing like a theme weekend from like 9 to 5, you can do that. I'm kind of more of an old school guy. I like taking my default and then I duplicate it and I call it like a themed weekends or something. And that gives a little more control. I can do some, RCS Live Twofers here or whatever. I can have a little more flexibility with that, And so that's just me personally. But if you want to, you can do either way. Override the clock, override the grid. It's up to you. I used to do a lot of program weekends. And so for me, I like to kind of keep those grids lying around so I know it's an override. Again, that's just me. So once we schedule that, we jump to the editor over here, right? And so now we're in the editor, and I want to show you my 12 o'clock hour here. So we're at 12. So you can see there's my Twofer clock in here. And this is what you want to see in a perfect world, right? Rolling Stones, Rolling Stones, Rolling Stones, right? Satisfaction, Start Me Up, Sympathy for the Devil. Great, sounds good. Next one, Pink Floyd, Pink Floyd, Pink Floyd. That's what we want. Nice and easy, simple. This is pretty straightforward in my opinion because we're just taking that basic Vocalist, we're expanding on it. And as I said, if you want more control here, you can have that control further down. Now, we'll save the link portion for the very, very end. Let's talk about for a second here this, wait a second, unscheduled twofer, unscheduled twofer, unscheduled twofer, unscheduled twofer. Nate, you just said this is working correctly. What's going on? You're a liar, Nate. What have you done to my Twofer database? Well, let's think about this for a second. GSelector will do what you tell it to do. So the first thing I recommend for you, now there's two ways you can do it. You can always click on this artist here and do like an F for the criteria filter. And you can search in here was AC/DC. I mean, you could go AC, but it's right there. Double click on it and you can see, Mark, how many songs do I have in AC/DC? Two songs. You'll notice this happens a lot, especially if you're doing an A to Z week, or not A to Z, a Twofer weekend from Friday until like Sunday night. You are allowing GSelector to schedule from a category that might not have enough songs that you're calling for the Twofer position. Thus, it won't schedule because there's no songs to schedule. The flip side of this is you get those Christmas songs where all of a sudden you get like an AC/DC have Christmas songs? I can't remember if they do or not, but you have an AC/DC Christmas song that pops up in there and you're like, Nate, GSelector went rogue and all of a sudden it's playing some, Christmas music in my Twofer weekends. Why is it doing that? Because you allowed it to, right? So what we're going to look at now is a couple ways you can confirm the correct behavior for your Twofer profile. The easiest thing to do is there's two main sections. The first thing's going to be under goals and priorities. Notice how I create an isolated Twofer priority list here. I'm going to go with my default for one quick second. Look at all these rules I have in here. Now, these actually are pretty basic, but specifically minimum separation, even more specific, vocal and artist separation. Think about when you have one default priority list. I'm not yelling at you. I'm sorry. I'm very passionate. You have one default song priority list for everything, theme songs, Twofers, everything. And you have a vocalist min set of 25 minutes. Think about that for a second. How are you going to schedule the same artist back to back when you have a minimum separation of 20 minutes? It's not physically possible, right? So one of the first things I like to tell new users when they have Twofers is take your existing party list, go over here and copy it, and you know what? Or create a new one and remove all of the unbreakable rules, because by definition, think of Bon Jovi in segue bands, 80s hair metal into 80s hair metal. It's Bon Jovi. We want to have two 80s hair metal. That's the whole point of the Twofer weekend, right? And so this is a very important first step, right? Isolating both your themes and your Twofers into their own priority lists, and then remove all of the unbreakable rules and focus more on the goal-based scheduling. And don't forget to assign that. So you can see there's the Twofer right here. Hit the plus, drop down, Twofers, select all day, select Twofers, boom. That's going to fix your Twofers. So that's the first thing, is that you got to make sure you have no rogue rules attached to your Twofers. And don't get lazy with those priority lists. Make sure you're telling GSelector exactly what you want to do. As a basic rule of thumb for me, I have found for new users of GSelector, I like to have kind of a currents, recurrence, gold priority list. And sometimes I'll combine the golds and the recurrence into one. It just depends on how your library is oriented. That's the biggest thing, right? Now, the second part of that is that's the rule. So that's when things are not allowed to play. They get a score of a 0. Nate, I don't have any twofers. Why they're not scheduling? I can see there's songs there, but they have a score of a 0. Check your priority list. Check your assignment. The second thing from there is going to be the categories. For a quick example here. How do we tell GSelector what we want and don't want to do? Specifically with the Vocalist, going back to the Chris Cornell example. Remember, we're okay with Soundgarden to Soundgarden. We're okay with Soundgarden to Chris Cornell. We're not okay with Soundgarden into Temple of the Dog, right? Or we have the Christmas music as Mark's favorite fan, right? Christmas in July. Yes. I actually once was working at a radio station that I got a phone call an hour before my shift and said that we were flipping to Christmas for the weekend, and I may or may not have a job when I come back. Turns out I did. It was all good. But still, I digress. So what you can do here is, how do you define in GSelector what you can and can't do? So from this drop down, there's actually a twofer day part, and that will allow you to essentially expand this, and you can now start to define what can and can't happen based on these twofers. So let's just take, for example, here for an Aerosmith as an example, because we have Sweet Emotion, Dream On, and Walk This Way. Let's pretend for a second, for whatever reason, this is a Christmas category, or it's a Christmas song, or it's a song you used to want to include in your twofer themed weekend. Well, then I can go in here and just ban it, right? Just like that, it's not going to play. But more specifically, if this was my Christmas category, I can ban the entire category first. So it's a really important step. If you have any unwanted music, like hold music or whatever, that you don't want to play in your twofers, isolate it by going to the goals and then go to the day part twofer, and then banning anything you don't want to schedule in the twofer position, right? And more specifically, if you want the artist, go to goals, balance. I'm not going to save my changes here. Participants, and you can see there's Vocalist right here. And this is now where we say, like, okay, I don't want to play, boom, I'm going to ban all Temple of the Dog from playing my twofer positions. Something like that, right? And there's different ways you can do that too as well. But you can see I can break down the individual Vocalist by going goals, balance, participants, twofer day part, break down the Vocalist. Or I can go to the songs themselves. Again, not saving my changes, goals, balance, songs, twofer. I can say, I'm not going to play you and you and you, right? And so then all of a sudden, it's like, boom, I can start really controlling what my twofers, what I want them to be. You can have a counter theme and have things like don't play during twofer weekends. And you can take that attribute. So again, I'm going to go to my attributes, not save my changes. And this could be like an era. This could be like a sound code or a theme. And you can see here, I have a theme weekend. Oh, I know what that is over there. And so I can go over here and really break this down if I wanted to, right? So some really cool things I can do inside of that. So just again, you want to control this, right? That's what you want to do, is you want to control what's going on in your database, right? And so at that point in time, going back to my editor here, when I open this back up, I now know why this twofer was unscheduled, or I know why I wasn't picking that position, or why I did pick a Christmas song. Use your goals, balance attributes, goals, balance songs, goals, balance vocalists, and really just make your twofer exactly the way you want it to do, right? That's the idea over there. So if you have any questions, let me know. Throw your questions in here. As I said, we're talking about twofers today: YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter Live, all that good stuff. You got a question, let me know. I can answer those questions for you as Mark contemplates if he wants to go and essentially do a Christmas in July. I love it. I got to tell you, Mark, my favorite thing is doing, I might go to a bar on a Saturday night in the middle of July and play some Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas album. It's my favorite thing to do. It's a great people watching experiment. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, absolutely. Can we ban genres? Boom. Yes, absolutely. So again, Mark was saying, can we ban genres? On his station, he has upbeat songs to play and all of that, right? Absolutely. Again, tell GSelector what you want to play or what you don't want to play. That's all available in the Twofer dropdown from the goal and balance. Just go to your genres, pick it from there, and go to town, right? Genres are a loaded question because you can have a genres attribute or the categories could be genres. So either one that works as well. So yeah, twofers. And again, going back to this for a second, remember identifying what we can do inside these twofer positions. They're all here. So again, you can see another quick little example here. Like for example, Bryan Adams. I could go to Bryan Adams, hit a little F on here, click here, do BRY, Bryan Adams, double click in here. And a quick way to see is you don't have enough songs. You can see right there, I have one Bryan Adams song to choose from. Yeah, I don't have enough music to play there for that position, right? Stuff like that. So last call for questions here because I'm going to wrap this up with our imaging piece of this. So what you can do, if I go back to my clock structure here and go back to my twofers, you'll see, by the way, that there is a leading link twofer themed weekend match. What am I doing there exactly? So under linker, I have a brand new, it's a twofer weekend. It's a twofer, right? And so you can do over here is essentially open this up. And now I assigned it a theme twofer weekend. Again, I like a little more clarity in my GSelector database. I like to tell GSelector to do something. So for me, I'm very much I purposely identify attributes, and then I might go and do some things with that inside of the goals and balance. I might do some specific control or rotations. One of the things I used to do for my artist positioners was I had one with music, one without music. And obviously, if I have music hooks included in artist positioner, I don't want those to play too often. So I put a min sep on a themed music hooks in GSelector for an hour and 20 minutes. And there were 2 per hour. And I would move that quarter hour and the hour every time from a music hook position, stuff like that, right? Again, think about what I just did there. You can rewind and think about that. But so what you can do here is after you define that theme, go back to your related links. And remember, there's fly-in links, which is in addition to that to the actual log position. And then you can say remove this, right? So I can say this existing one here. And the big thing is here is only replace, right? So I can still do the same thing with fly-in links. But if I'm making an entire clock and I'm doing it right, I kind of want to go to the clock position here, go to the theme, and essentially say if I'm a song attribute theme twofer weekend, match that same exact song attribute twofer weekend, right? Pretty cool, huh? And I can also adjust this if I want to, a little more complex, add more granularity in there, but it's up to you. So I've seen some users do some really cool things with these leading links and trailing links. So just be aware if it's a leading or trailing link, it's built in the clock structure itself with a fallback generic category versus the fly-in link, which is a default position that gets overridden with your fly-in link relationship. Make sense? So to summarize, twofers, set them up, setup, station, features, twofers, enable it. You definitely want to make sure you match with vocalist or artist. Again, Chris Cornell. Are you okay with Soundgarden and Chris Cornell? Are you okay with Soundgarden into Temple the Dog? You tell me, it's your choice. By the way, you might want to Google artist block. We have a couple users that will like to have multiple blocks of the same artists, and you can combine that in here. If you're ever confused, use the F1 Dynamic Help Guide. We can talk about artist blocks as well. I'm more of just a twofer guy. Personally, it's quick and easy. That's the way I like it. Then from there, going back to your clock structure itself, have your twofer positions, have your song category groups before them, override the clock structure there, and then don't forget under the goals and categories and day part, isolate these with things you want to and don't want to play, because that's going to tell GSelector what I am allowed to play in the twofers and what I should avoid, like Christmas music, in your twofer positions. And worst case scenario, go to your editor and actually look at what's going on here. Plug in a song, see if it scores. If it doesn't score, if it does have a score of a 0, then you want to jump back to your goals and your priorities, and you want to make sure you isolate that twofer, removing any unbreakable rules, right? I got that in under 30 minutes. You all saw it. You all heard it. I can talk about Twofers for like an hour here. So listen, I believe I will see you next week. Then I'm hitting the road. As I said, if you're going to be out and about, come hang out with us. Bring your database. Let's talk shop. These are some great events we have coming up, and we'll hopefully see you at one of these. I assume not all of them, but somewhere in there. We will see you. Bring your database. We'll talk some shop. We'll schedule some time, and I'll show you some cool things you can do with GSelector, Zeta, Acquira, Revma, Zeta Cloud. You name it, we'll be there talking about it. So I'll see you on the road with RCS Academy, and I'll see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for another RCS.